Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. So today we're going to talk about those new Muslims who are trying to start and embark on their spiritual and religious paths. And we're going to talk about this idea of trying out something new and that we could be ashamed of it, right? Because we don't know, and then we're just starting, and we start to compare ourselves to those who are righteous and to our position now, where we just started on trying out Islam. And then we're going to talk about the reward itself for initiating on that action and the journey, acknowledging the journey's process and its time, and a hadith that I'm going to share, inshallah, that relates to this. And lastly, Allah's pleasure. So, first of all, we're going to talk about even if you're a Muslim, if you are a Muslim or you are a new Muslim, sometimes when we went back to Islam, when we rediscovered or just discovered Islam, we tend to forget, or if you were Muslims or if you are Muslims and just rediscovered it, we tend to sometimes forget like how to do salat, for example, like how to do prayer, for example, and how to do these basic practices in Islam. And sometimes, like even if you're a new Muslim or a Muslim, we get ashamed of asking people on how to do this certain act because the fact that it's basic, we get ashamed and we fear of being laughed at because we don't even know the basics of our very own religion. So one thing that to remind is that this is really rewarded. Like the fact that you want to learn more about Islam and you start to ask, and that's looked upon. And there's no fear for that. But that fear is really normal. And just reminding ourselves that this journey takes a long way, that we can't just suddenly wish to be an expert in the basic actions, that the basic practices in Islam. We need to first just take one step. That's all. Sometimes that's all what it takes to embark on this spiritual journey. Sometimes it's nervous, right? And we tend to delay on learning these practices because we're afraid of asking people. And sometimes just taking this one baby step is all what it needs to be an expert in those actions, in practicing Islam. And for example, if you are struggling and if you have taken that baby step and you are in that path towards Allah, yet you're still struggling, yet you compare yourself to your situation with the Quran, with the recitation of the Quran, with how you pray, compared to those righteous people who already recites the Quran so fluently and they can already remember and memorize so many surahs and really excel in their prayer. Meanwhile, you just started on doing these acts and you are struggling in doing these actions and in doing these principles, right? And this hadith is really profound because, for example, this hadith said that when a person is struggling to recite the Quran, so their reward, the person who is struggling, will be doubled to the reward of those who recite it fluently. So the reward of the one who is struggling to recite the Quran is higher than the one who is fluently reciting the Quran. This is because, like in my interpretation and an opinion and perception of this, is that Allah uplifts those who are struggling, not as a means to degrade those who are really excelling, but as a means that there shouldn't be anything to be ashamed of starting something new and starting Islam. And it's really something that we as believers look upon. Like when we look to our brothers and sisters who has just started on Islam, we feel proud of them, right? And like as a youth, when I hear people taking steps towards Allah and taking steps towards Islam, like it just made me so happy, like inside me. Although if I don't show it, but it just made me happy and it could even make my day. So imagine how Allah will react. Like that's just me. That's just a servant of Allah reacting to someone who just started to embark on a path towards Allah. Imagine how Allah himself will react. Imagine how happy he will be to have one of his beloved servants come back to him. Like, it's so wholesome that when he sees you, know that he's proud of you. By his permission, of course. So that's the end of my talk for today. I hope it benefited. So the summary for today is that if you're a new Muslim or you are a Muslim who has just rediscovered Islam and you're trying out Islam's practices for the first time or for the first time in a while, it's normal to feel ashamed of learning about it or asking people about it because it is basic and you feel that you might get insulted. But always remind ourselves that you are rewarded for initiating on this path towards Allah, on this return to Allah. And know that it takes a long process, that you can't just be excelling in the practices of Islam in one night. There needs to be a practice. There needs to be baby steps. And all it takes to just start, sometimes it's just one step. And all of a sudden, you can be excelling in those same practices. So when we're struggling, and specifically when we're struggling to recite the Quran, know that our reward is doubled. And it's beautiful how Allah elevates those who are struggling, and know that when Allah sees you really trying out Islam's practices and really trying to understand it, know that even when the believers and the Muslims see that you are really trying to understand it, they feel so proud of you. Imagine how Allah will be so proud of you, Allah Himself. So that's my talk for today. I hope you benefited. Salam and thank you.